I would encourage everybody to get Happiness Beyond Thought, this book here, because it doesn't have the text that we were just talking about, which is in Evolving Beyond Thought, but it has some other texts to memorize, and I'm done all of them, and they're very, very useful. So it's a lot of Sanskrit to have in your head, but it's so good. It's so good, but it is challenging. So I'm going to talk about some simpler things that you can do as well. But I just want to talk about the most recent one that I finished, which is called the Nirvana Shatakam, or you'll sometimes see it called the Atma Shatakam. But let's check in here with the chat. Tony says he was just listening to Tom Waits, my favorite. Yeah, he's amazing. That dude is unbelievable. What's your favorite album, Tony? I have my favorite, which you could probably guess, but he's really cool. Pepper says used to smoke pot back in the 70s, but quit in '84. I am deathly of anything like that affecting my memory. Deathly afraid, I guess, of anything like that affecting my memory as I have grad school quals coming up. What's the verdict on pot versus memory? I actually have a video on that topic, Pepper. So you could search up marijuana using my site to see more what I say in that video. I don't think my opinion has changed, but the first thing that I would say is this. Put aside the worry. It's not really helpful, and you can't change it anyway. Whatever is past. So, I mean, I think you're missing a word in your post. I'm deathly something of anything. I guess a deathly afraid. Well, we're talking about reducing stress today, right? And so one of the things that we can do is just use the tools that we talked about today. So if you missed it and you want to watch the replay to catch up to speed, here's a brief way of not having to watch the replay. We just have to just say, are my thoughts around this useful? How do they behave? And so if they're fear thoughts, then we can just say, well, those are fear thoughts. And then when they come up, we just acknowledge them. Oh, there's that fear thought again. And this can instantly reduce the stress around it. And then if you keep practicing it, and you can continue to ask different questions. There's many, many questions like, what is the value of these thoughts? How are these thoughts connecting me to my past? And, to whom? This is a weird question. It took me a while to kind of wrap my brain around why you would even ask this, but now it makes total sense. But to whom exactly is this fear, this worry happening, right? And if you can find that person, well, good luck, because I don't think you can, but it helps dissolve the thoughts because you can't really find that person. Like, where is the voice that's causing the fear, right? Where is the person? I can't find them. It's just, there's nobody there. Lights on, nobody home, and it's just very, very simple. So one of the things that you learn in the Sanskrit is these two words, neti neti, which just sort of means not this, or not that, not that. And so one of the things you can do also is just say neti neti. So that's the first thing I would just suggest, right? Is that whenever your thoughts come up around this, interrogate them, inquire. Are they useful? How are they behaving? What is the value of these thoughts? This can help dissolve them. And then, to whom are these thoughts occurring? And try to find that person. Right? Where's the monkey mind producing it? Where is it? Literally, where is it? If you follow Sam Harris in Waking Up, he refers to a book called On Having No Head by Douglas Harding. And it's kind of like mind-melting. It was for me in the beginning. What the heck is this guy talking about on having no head? But if you actually try to see your own face, can you? Right? Literally, where is your head? Well, where is the you that thinks it has a head in the first place? Where is the you that thinks it has a history with smoking pot, right? And how do you remind yourself to dissolve the very idea that there is one? Simple memory palace. Are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? Or in the Sanskrit, right? Hashtag monkey mind, says Sean Patrick. Exactly. Noting your thoughts, labeling your thoughts. I think you can go further. You can neutralize your thoughts. And one of the things in one of the texts, I don't have the book here to show you, but it's called The Fire of Self-Knowledge, which is a translation of a text called Atmabodha. It says that this is the fifth verse. Yes, the 5th verse. It says, constant practice of self-knowledge neutralizes ignorance as a base neutralizes an acid, purifying the individual self. And what it's saying there, so when it says neutralizes ignorance, what ignorance means is essentially you not being in the moment. You not realizing that now is the only time. Now and only now, right? Because when you're thinking about, oh, my fear and, oh, the stuff that I did in the past, that's not the now. That's ignorance. That's ignorance, because now is now, now, right? Be awake, wake up, enjoy right now, and not worrying about the exams in the future. I did a PhD myself. I had to qualify. I had 2 field exams and a dissertation defense. I knew back then to meditate and not get hung up in the exam to come and all the worries and thoughts and etc. I'll never forget the second exam, flying from Manhattan to Toronto. And this plane went down, and then just as it was hitting the runway, it went whoom up. And the next thing you know, we're over Lake Ontario, and it looks like we're beelining straight for the CN Tower. 9/11 is still fresh on everyone's mind, right? And we're just like, what the hell is going on? This is a small plane, and it had one stewardess, and she sat on the cockpit door facing everybody. And everybody's just like, what the hell is going on? I'll never forget her saying, if the pilot wants to tell me something, the pilot will tell me something. We're just all like, what the hell is that? And the plane, right? You think everybody's screaming, crying, freaking out. It was deadly silent, and everybody's freaking out. But somebody's, like, talked to what's going on with the pilot, breaking the silence. And she just says, if the pilot wants to tell me something, he'll tell me something. Anyway, we finally, after circling around in this crazy madness, we finally land, and the pilot says, yeah, well, there was another plane on the runway, and sorry about that, folks, but everything's okay now. We just missed him. Anyway, I go the next day, and I'm completely rattled to sit in my field exam, and there's whatever. Anyway, long story short, I passed, but it was because of the strength of constant meditation and being able to put thoughts out of the mind and just focus and answer to the best of my ability and not get hung up on it. But I was still pretty rattled, to be honest, and it was freaking me out. Buddha was born in Nepal, and he's there, or he's here. Everyone says, hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning to you, Buddha. Nice to see the Buddha, always. Anyway, so there's that. Now, in terms of pot itself and residual effects, I don't necessarily know all of these things. But one thing for sure that I would say is there is a future coming, and anything that you can do to purify, whether it's through optimizing your diet, adding meditation, regular daily memory practice, at least 4 times a week, but ideally every day, you're going to really accelerate that sort of healing. You're going to reduce these fears and worries, and then you're going to be fine, especially if you memorize the information that you need for your qualifications. So, and I would just suggest if you really have concerns, see a doctor who actually knows about these things. But I also wouldn't punish oneself for these things. And, when I did all my graduate stuff, I was drinking beer like crazy. And I even, was super, super self-medicating and hungover when I went to a memory competition one time. And the memory techniques worked fine. They would have worked a lot better without those ridiculous considerations. But nonetheless, it worked out fine. So I hope that helps you out. I hope that gives you some insight. And I congratulate you for being concerned. And one just needs to keep moving forward. Now, you say, Dr. M, my friends are all bragging about how indica removes all their stress and want me to get into it. Oh, so that came before this. Yeah, I mean, the old thing about all your friends jumping off a bridge, right? So it's just that kind of thing. And if they're really friends, their bragging will always come with the acceptance that people don't have to do what they do. And then if they don't, then they're not friends. Interesting that you mention it. My PhD dissertation was on friendship. And in a nutshell, the thesis of my dissertation was that friends assume what's called hypothetical consent. And that is a horrible thing. This is a crime. And I give many, many examples of how this plays out. And it's a tautological structure. So a friend assumes that they have your consent to talk about this, that, and the other thing because you're their friend. And because they're your friend, they talk about this, that, and the other thing. So it is a tautology. So I recognize its logical limits, but nonetheless, it seems to be very real in how friendships play out. And so if you look at the movies and the history of philosophy and so forth, we see various tools in philosophy to avoid that circle. And some of them involve, like in Aristotle, for example, realizing that you have friends that are just for pleasure, you have friends that are essentially friends of utility, and then you have friends of virtue. And friends of virtue are obviously the ones that we want the most of, but we also don't want our lives to go empty of friends of utility and friends of pleasure. And Aristotle thinks these things will shift around as you age, but I think that there's a time for all these things at all times. So keep that in mind, but keep in mind that the problem of hypothetical consent can happen at all time, at any time with any of the categories of friends. And one of the things that we want to always be aware of is that the virtuous friend is not always who we think of as a friend. So, for example, some people are better friends to us than we acknowledge, such as the hard-nosed teacher of memory, for example, who you might not know personally, but has the courage to put this foot down and say, look, buck up or shut up and use these techniques, or there's the door, don't let it bang you on the backside on your way out, right? That is virtuous level friendship in the Aristotelian construction, but you wouldn't necessarily always see that person as a friend. Anyway, hope that helps you out there with that issue. So Sean Patrick is pointing out, morning gratitude. Think of the 3 things you are grateful for and relive each one for 1 minute. Touch, sound, sight, smell, and taste. Always puts me in a great mood to start my day. Beautiful. Yeah, I usually list 10 of them, and certainly reliving things is where we started today, and that's a very beautiful strategy inside of a memory palace. All right, so if you're joining us, hit thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And let's talk about memorizing the Atma Shatakam, sometimes called the Nirvana Shatakam, and some of the issues around that. We've already seen a memory palace, and we can see it again in a second here. But how do you even get started when you want to do some sort of more intermediate advanced memorization? So we've already had some examples of just simple questions. Are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? And thank you to everybody who participated with your great mnemonic suggestions. That's wonderful to see. Now, when you got to do it for 2 languages at the same time, and you got to do it for words that just don't exactly always have one-to-one correspondences in quite the same way, what do, right? So the Nirvana Shatakam, which itself has to be memorized, especially given the fact that it has 2 titles, the Atma Shatakam and the Nirvana Shatakam, you want to start there, obviously. Now, the interesting thing about Nirvana, as I understand it, nir is like a negation word, so it's not. And the vana part is, I believe it has something to do with the flame of a candle. So nirvana literally means, as far as I understand it, lights out. The flame is extinguished, right? That's one translation that I've heard, which is very nice. So that's interesting to dwell upon. So Sean is very gracious in giving us the suggestions of thinking about things you're grateful for. But you can also meditate upon nothing. Nirvana. The candle is out. Whew. Right? Now, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to meditate on nothing? Well, how about this reason? You don't exist, right? In the sense of this I. Oh, poor me. Oh, I'm freaking out. Oh, I'm having a food reaction. Oh, I'm stressed out. Oh. The world is coming to an end. Really? Which world? I mean, the future may look grim. There may be serious issues. But what about now, 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 now? So we want to negate all of the thoughts about the future. We want to negate all the thoughts about the past, blow them out like a candle. And we even want to negate all our thoughts about the now, because how useful are they, right? So Nirvana Shatakam is very cool because it negates the whole notion of this body that's appearing in space, right? And the mind that's in it. And I really like it because it also negates the whole notion of memory itself. So it starts Mano Bujahankara Chitani Naham Nacha no Nacha. Oh, I've lost it. I haven't sang it yet. Mano Bujahankara Chitani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jivi Nacha Krana Nitri Nacha Vyoma Bhumir Natejo Navayu Chitananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. There. Now, another good thing is you know how to relax yourself when you make a mistake and you're not embarrassed when you're on a live stream. Oh, what the hell happened to that? And then you find it again. So let's see how we did. So it's Mano Bujahankara Chitani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jivi Nacha Krana Nitri Nacha Vyoma Bhumir Nateja Navayu Chitananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Yeah, there we go. Now, the thing is you'll see this if you look it up, Atma Shatakam, Nirvana Shatakam, you'll hear it pronounced in many different ways. And notice that there are actually different versions out there, and there's many different ways that they sing it. So I'm not totally confident that how I'm pronouncing it is correct or that there even is a correct one. Because, for example, that nacha, some people will pronounce it nacho. So, for example, I said nacha vyoma bhumir, but sometimes it's like nacho vyoma, and they'll make it o to go with the vyo, and then sometimes this bhumi will be bhumir, and bhumir with the primacy effect is how I sort of remembered it the first time. And anyway, you'll find all kinds of strange adventures like this happen in your journey. So keep that in mind. And then notice too that when you're saying things, sometimes you'll slip up, and then how do you get yourself back? Now, if you allow yourself to get stressed out about that stuff, then you could be lost. They say that Winston Churchill gave a speech one time, and he totally forgot the speech, and so he never memorized speeches again. I don't know if that's a true story or not, but he was so stressed out about it that he never gave another speech from memory again, which is a bit of a shame, because he could have maybe memorized this and then learned how to instantly reduce his stress. Because the instant this, I got a line wrong, and I'm going to be embarrassed and panic and all this sort of stuff, you just negate it. You just reduce it. Gone. And that was useful even when I gave my TEDx. I didn't forget any of the lines when I did that, but some unexpected things happened, and I had to shut off my thoughts and not get stressed out about the unexpected. So learn how to reduce stress, and the best way is to memorize certain things that we've been talking about today. So Sean says, there is a meditation from Alan Watts about transforming past what is human. It's fantastic. Equanimity. All right, let's look that up. Everybody who's interested in that. Alan Watts is great. I love that guy. I was able to actually work a little bit with his son, Mark, for a while on a project. So that's cool. I emailed him recently to see if I could get an update about that and tell him about my forthcoming book, but I haven't heard back from him. It's probably too far in the distant past, and maybe that email is not his anymore. But I could maybe look up the website. All right, if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And what's your mood like? Who would like to go deeper into this and see it play out in a memory palace? Because I think this is one of the most powerful tools. But I want to be on point. If you guys got other things you want to talk about, if you want to ask any questions or comments, let me know in the chat. I'm going to get another drink here. And while we're waiting to see who would like to play around with this and get into some examples, I would like to update or talk to you briefly. He doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I've invited him on the podcast, on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, and just recommend for everybody Ryan Mishler's Sovereignty, which is a really good book. And he's from Order of Man podcast. And so I don't think that you have to be a man to enjoy it, but it is directed at men. And this is a very, very good book. So I'm excited to talk to him on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. And you can hear me on his podcast, but it's just a generally good podcast. And he has a great Facebook group that I would recommend. And for those of you who are following along and have seen the Art of Memory video, you might want to also read Art of Memory and Giordano Bruno and Renaissance Science as part of your homework. We are producing part 2, which is a detailed study on Rhetorica ad Herennium, which Yeats, in chapter 1 of The Art of Memory, doesn't dive into, strangely, at all. So I went really deep into it, and I hope you really enjoy that video. Who here has seen part 1 of the Art of Memory series that I released? I would love to know. And if not, please check it out so that you can follow along. I know a bunch of people said that they have ordered the book so they can follow along, and it's going to work best for those of you who are reading it and following it along. All right, let's see here. J.A. is in the house. Alex, haven't seen you for a long time. I was thinking about you the other day. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Anthony says, any ideas on dealing with procrastination? Because I am right now. All right. So, yeah, procrastination, that's a big one. Some people say, if you're going to procrastinate, just enjoy it. That's what Eckhart Tolle says, don't punish yourself. But tell me more, Anthony, what is the procrastination? Rather than generalize, what's happening? Lay out some stuff. Let's deal with specifics rather than just generalize. Very, very important. So Sean says, I'm in. I got a painting of Howie Mandel in my living room. Art Howie. Excellent. Beautiful. And Pepper asks, when studying Aristotle's works, have you come across the word figura? Yes, indeed, indeed. So what are your thoughts around that? It's a very interesting concept. Oliver is in the house from Florida, very interested in this. I've been using Sam Harris's Waking Up app to improve my meditation. I often use Memory Palace Recall to calm down as well. Excellent, Oliver. Thanks for letting us know that. Thanks for being here. And so let's see here. Anthony would like to go deeper into this. So you're asking, what is it? This is the Nirvana Shatakam, sometimes called Atma Shatakam. And it's the second text that Gary talks about Gary Weber, that is, in Happiness Beyond Thought. Incidentally, you can find a PDF of this for free on the internet, and he seems very happy for that to be the case. But for serious students, I would recommend that you actually get the book because, if you're going to work with something, memorize from paper. And basically my process is to memorize from the paper. Sometimes I will take it to the park, often just here, and just work at it. So, there's no perfect place to start. Like I started with the Ribhu Gita extracts, but then I went to what's called the Upadesa Sharam, which is 30 verses. So 32 verses from Ribhu Gita, 30 from Upadesa Sharam. I don't know how you would count this, but it's 6 sections. And so, like I say to people, I have somehow somewhere between 75 and 100 of these things memorized, because I also have a fair amount of passages from the Bhagavad Gita memorized. So it's getting to be a lot. I have no intention of going after a Guinness record or any of that stuff, but if I did, it would be in Sanskrit. Basically, to get started, that's what I would do. Literally have the book, not from the screen. I mean, I've done some training trials to memorize from screens. I don't enjoy it. If people do, that's fine. I know some of the memory competitors, they use their software and memorize from software. I find it completely unenjoyable. But what we want to do is we want to have a memory palace, right? We want to have it all sorted out. And so we've got material to deal with here, right? So we've got Mano Bu Jahankara chitani naham mano. What are we going to do there? What are we going to do there? Maybe some of you can guess what I would do for man. What would be the most obvious thing to you for man? The sound man. Let me know in the chat. Fish with me rather than me handing it out. What would you do for man? What is, depending on your age, the most obvious thing for man? Those of you who, oh, I don't even want to give this clue. I don't want to give this clue. We'll talk about it after. It's so good, though. It's so good when you know how to do this, when you're prepared to do it. All right. Okay, so Austin has Barry Manilow. I don't know if that's correct spelling. I don't know. No, I think it's M-A-N, but very good. Barry Manilow. That is a very obvious one. Excellent. So that's good. I have Johnny Cash, of course, the man in black. But here's the beauty of the setup. For those of you who get your 00 to 99 sorted, and you have good images for everything from 00 to 99, you instantly have an image for everything, really, that I've ever seen. And you don't have to work at it. You don't have to do anything. It's just boom, right? So Manny Ramirez, He-Man or Ip-Man comes to mind. Excellent Adolfo, excellent Oliver. See, it's so easy. It's so easy. Austin says, I find it to be really cool that you memorize spiritual texts like monks from the past. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm into that. Shaft, yeah. Very good, very good. Sean Patrick, the government, the man. Yeah. So just to, there's nothing wrong with that, Sean, but the thing there is, who's the specific thing? So is it Hoover? Is it, I don't know what, but that's, if conceptual abstractions work for you, go for it, right? But I like to think of like, who would it be? So Hoover is a different number for me, but I would consider that if I was going that way. Anyway, so now we've got, I don't know who Manny Ramirez is, Adolfo, but we've got He-Man, right? So I've used He-Man to memorize Sanskrit. The thing is then how do we know that it's Mano instead of Mana or Mani or Manu, right? How do we know? What is he going to do? Neil Armstrong, Man on the Moon. Excellent. Would you believe? Right. Good from Time Lord. Excellent. There's lots of options, right? This is so easy. It's so easy. Now just imagine, though, that it's also your 32 in a 00 to 99. Makes it even better, right? Because then you could think of, if you didn't have anything else, you could think of, well, what is in my 00 to 99? Well, I will leave it at that. See if you can fill in the blanks. So much fun. So much fun. All right. So, Mano Bujahankara Chitaninaham. And that can all be in just one station there. Or it could be across a line. 32 is Time Lord's Moon. Adolfo says, Manny Ramirez, Boston Red Sox baseball player. Excellent. Great. So now he could be throwing something like an O, right? Mano. So we've got that. And so we have to go, Mano Bu Jahankara. So we have Buddha here today. I saw in the chat. That's obvious, right? Jahankara. Oh, well. Han Solo, my friend Yan, right? Cars are cars. But which car, right? Maybe there's a friend named Kara, etc. And this is just how you weave. And you weave, 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 right? So it's very fun. David is in the house. Sorry you missed this. I'm sorry also. Kind of a spontaneous thing. We're a little bit late with this week's video, and that's because we're making a movie. We've made a movie out of part 2 of Art of Memory documentary. The Rhetorica ad Herenium deserves it. To really patch in what is missing from what Yeats did. And I hope you all enjoy it. Austin Study says 8 is Ouroboros in the shape of an 8. Oh, nice. Nice. Do you know what my 8 is? Can anybody guess? Well, sorry, but my 8 is not my 8. My 8 is always 08, right? So 8 is snowman, obviously, but what my 08 is different. Who here has multiple systems for numbers? I'd love to know that. And if you don't have them, who would love to have multiple systems for numbers? Let me know in the chat. And let me know what you're doing, where you're at in the world. If you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Get subscribed if you're new here. If you're watching the replay, say hello in the discussion. That helps Robotlandia know that humans like this content. It's so interesting and strange how the world works these days. And we will reflect on that strangeness indeed. Time Lord says, I have a peg list and major for my list. Excellent, excellent. So multiple systems there. One of the things that you want to consider in your practice is developing multiple systems so you can have crossover. Adolfo says, I'd like to add more number systems to my bag. Yeah. So I don't know where you're at with all of them, but if you have number shape and you have 00 to 99, and then you just have, the major for on the fly kind of stuff as such, I'm sort of thinking of developing a shadow. Not sure though. I mean, and the thing is, I don't know that I would ever use it, but just for the mental exercise, it could be fun. Yeah. So anyway, that's basically how that works. And when we want to throw in the English, then here's where you can just reuse memory palaces. So, the English just goes through a set of negations. And basically what it's saying in the first line really is, I am not the mind that thinks or imagines, the intellect that categorizes and decides, the ego or the I sense which springs into being as the doer, nor the memory. Now you'll see different translations of this. So for example, the Wikipedia translation doesn't have that exact thing there, but this is the one that's in Happiness Beyond Thought. And it's very useful and powerful to, when you're stressed out, have a tool that reminds you, I am not the mind. I am not this mind that is going blah, 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 blah. The mind that is going blah, 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 blah appears in me. And according to the way the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta works, and I think if you really play this through, you will see that it's true. You can't be that mind because you cannot be anything that appears in you. You are the thing that is aware of the appearance of things in you. So you're not that mind, right? And you're not the one who is sitting there judging things, categorizing things, needing things, wanting things, right? It's springing into being. It appears as this doer, which means the person who is thinking, the person who is buying, the person who is worrying, the person who is humming and hawing and doing all this blah, blah, blah stuff and filled with likes and dislikes and all that stuff. But it's not you because it can't be. It is the thing that appears in you. And so I just imagine having some simple tools to shut that thing down. We've already talked about using happy memories to do it. We've talked about 2 simple questions, which somehow is appearing as 4 right now, but 2. And those are very simple. Are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? And then, sort of, so to speak, next level would be to sing this song, which reminds you that you are not the mind that thinks or imagines. Right? Mano bujahankara chitani naham nacha shrotra jivi nacha krana nitri nacha vyoma bhumir natejo navayu chitananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. And it just feels so good. Now, why does it feel so good? You might go, man, you can't sing. I'm out of here. Whatever. But the thing is we know that singing creates healthy chemicals in the brain that heal the body. So of course you're going to feel great because singing makes you feel great. So this is a Nike moment. Just do it. Right? Just do it. Just do it. It's beautiful. It's one of the reasons why I love to learn how to sing in different languages, right? So even if I sing a tragedy, Ich werde in die Tannen gehen, dahin, wo ich sie zuletzt gesehen, doch der Abend wirft ein Tuch aufs Land. I better not sing too much or else the robots will hear me. But, you know, because they do their strikes if we don't have the rights. But I sing so badly that maybe they won't recognize what I was singing there. But anybody know that, by the way? I love it, though, because even if you're singing a tragic song, it still creates those chemicals, which is why we sometimes feel a certain pleasure in sadness, right? Anyway, I highly recommend learning and singing and just combating bad thoughts with singing, because you just tackle them from so many angles, right? And it could be not singing, of course, but verbalizing is very, very useful. All right, so when we're going to memorize the English, though, right, now we got to reuse the memory palace. And so I am not the mind that thinks or imagines, right? What are we going to do? Well, here's the question for you, because this is the way I do it. When I memorize the English, I don't memorize the English. I just memorize the gist of it. And here's one reason why. One reason why is that there's so many translations out there. And you're going to come across so many translations. And they're all going to be different because different people have different ideas about how this or that word is translated. And there are 3 things to consider, at least 3. There may be 30, but there's at least 3 things to consider when you're translating anything. It's called logopoia, melopoia, and phanopoia. So logopoia is the logic. What is the logical sense here? Phanopoia is the imagery, if there is any, and usually there is. And then melopoia is the sound. And so often in translation, people deny that the sound has some meaning and they don't compensate for it in the translation. I think this is a mistake, and it causes us to not get the richness of so much that is translated. But it's also probably the hardest thing to compensate for. If you know Ezra Pound's translation of the Nicoya, which is I believe it's the 10th book of the Odyssey by Homer, he sacrifices a lot of logopoia and phanopoia, logic and imagery, in order to get that sound that is missing from so many of the translations. So it's just like, and then went down to the ship, set keel to breakers, set forth on the godless sea, right? And this translation is so beautiful because it sounds like these guys rowing through the ocean. But when you read any other, who's Lattimore or somebody who translates the Odyssey, they don't have that feeling. And he does, and it's so good, right? But some people will say, well, but that's not what the original says. And Pound says, sound matters, right? We want to feel it. And that's beautiful, what he did there. But you also have to acknowledge some of the logic and some of the imagery goes out the window. So it's not that it's a bad thing or a good thing, but keep that in mind. So when I memorize the English, I just memorize the gist because there's so many different versions. As long as I understand the logic, and as long as I understand the imagery, and as long as I understand the sound and its contribution to things, then we're good to go. And we can just teach out of a general knowledge of the gist of what the English meant. And I think that's useful. Let's take a different example of this, like with Nietzsche, for example. In Also Sprach Zarathustra, the chapter on friendship, he talks about how that you can never adorn yourself enough. You can never prepare yourself enough. You can never be fit enough to serve your friend, but you must long to be the arrow that basically tries to hit the target of doing that nonetheless, right? And so it's very, very important to try to be that arrow, to be the longing to fly like the arrow towards the target of preparing yourself enough to be the best possible friend, right? Now, I don't think that if you're not paying attention to the sound of the German, I don't think you'll pick up that he's referring to Zeno's paradox with the arrow, right? But I could be wrong. Anyway, that's just the way that it seems to me. And so that's why sound matters in translation. All right. So let's catch up with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And we got a lot here. Tony says, I use shapes for 1 to 9 and sometimes the rhymes in major system. Excellent, excellent. So yeah, I would recommend next step be like a 00 to 99. Grant says, usually too busy to watch these live. I have a master system, PAO system, and PAO card system. Wow, excellent, excellent. That's beautiful. And to carry on with your threads here, you're saying you made a separate palace for each to make them and added to them daily. So now I have a few large palaces. Wonderful. You just use the first image that comes to mind. You know the numbers. I combine the systems sometimes by accident, but the recall doesn't fail. And it was fun dropping in. Be watching tomorrow. Thanks for the videos. Well, thanks, Grant, for being here. I really appreciate it. And your insights on how you're doing it is very good. I'd love to hear more about that. CH, thanks for being here, CH. You said you have a major and Dominic system mixed using PAO. For example, Conan O'Brien as your third. I've never thought about him before. I don't know why. I never thought of him before. But isn't that big goofy oaf in the Archie comics named Moose? And Reggie and Archie and Betty and Veronica and all that stuff? Moose. Yeah, I think that's what his name was. Moose. Okay, so you're saying it works sometimes, but I regret it a bit. Can get confusing switching between the two. Well, CH, that's practice, right? So dive in and practice. One Hiccup says, no lies, I paid a person £370 to tell me and show me, among other things, that I am not the mind that thinks or imagines. No regrets, though. Yeah, One Hiccup, if it works, why put a price on paradise, right? Who cares how much things cost? They're just numbers. You can't take them with you. And anything that reduces suffering in the goal, I really don't understand why people get so hung up on what things cost. You're worth it. You are the asset. You are the champion horse. Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Every single penny is worth it. Why would you not be worth £370, even if it didn't work? Right? Chances, here's the thing, in the lottery of life, you don't know when it might work, and you never get to know if you don't do it and take it into context. And there's all kinds of things that switch on in value later. And if you are open to it and aware to it, then even if it doesn't ever switch on later, what does it really matter? What does it matter? You've got to be open to the fact that you just don't know, and you are worth it. Bullwinkle as 30 for Moose. Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So, yeah, that's basically how you do it. You just get the text that you want to memorize and you stick it there on a memory palace and you just work it in, massage it in. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.